Hello, everybody, and welcome to Veriff Voices, the podcast where we talk about identity verification, fraud, compliance, and all things technology. My name is Chris Hooper, and I'm Global Director of Digital and Content Marketing here at Veriff. And joining me today is Dana Endicott, SVP at Vantage Recreational Finance. Now, today's episode, I'll throw it over to Dana to do an introduction to herself in a moment, but today's episode is largely going to be, as quite often on this podcast, a story about fraud. We talk a lot about it here because we obviously have a very deep insight into this with the hundreds of customers that we've got. Our annual fraud report every year gives us a wealth of data that talks about how global fraud has increased 20% year on year from 2022 to 2023. But I think that high level sort of story about fraud, if you like, is only half the picture. What I'd like to do today in today's episode is explore what that actually looks like for a customer, for somebody on the ground, for somebody that's experiencing this in their day-to-day work. So Dana is very much in that role. And I think I can throw it over to you now, Dana, just to introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit about you, about your experience and maybe your current role as well.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Chris. As Chris mentioned, I am the Senior Vice President at Vantage Recreational Finance, and I joined the company in 2021. And the role that I'm playing with the company is that I was brought in at a time when the recreational finance was really booming. COVID had a definitive impact in that industry because people were prioritizing time with family and friends. And my personal area of expertise is actually in strategic growth and innovation for small businesses to help grow them up to that next level. And Vantage was experiencing incredible growth. And the man that started the company, Michael Harbaugh, had actually started a few other finance companies in different industries. And as he says, the bus was running at 80 miles an hour and I needed to change the tires and I had no clue how to do that. And so that's where our partnership began. And that's where I came in and evaluated essentially the way that they were doing business and brought him with my ideas on ways that we could improve the operations of the company, expand capacity for existing employees, and bring some new innovation into the industry. And so that's how I came to be at Vantage and what I'm kind of doing with them.
Awesome, that's great. And just tell us a little bit more about Vantage then, because I think it's a very interesting company in a very interesting space. Actually, we at Veriff, we work across the whole breadth of financial services, but I think this sort of the loan space is particularly interesting. So tell us a little bit more about the use case of the company, if you like, what it is that you guys do, a little bit about your customers and where you operate as well, maybe.
Excellent. So Vantage has a physical headquarters located in South Florida, which is actually the boating capital of the world because we have incredible boating opportunities. And for the first 10 years of operations, they were dedicated exclusively to the marine industry. So they focused on what we call more of the true recreational use versus the luxury category. So in the recreational category, you're going to have the people that go fishing and the people that go water skiing or that take a pontoon boat out on a lake for a nice sunset dinner. That was our primary customer. And even though we're located in Florida, the client base was throughout the United States. And what has happened over the course of time is we've expanded our market to include a bit larger categories of boats, still not in that luxury space at this point. But we've also incorporated recreational vehicles because there was an incredible demand in the market space in what we call the RV category. And, people that go camping and that during COVID, people were buying RVs and taking 6 months and traveling and finally getting a chance to see the rest of our beautiful country and enjoy that because they could work remotely while doing it. And so we expanded into that category as well. And we have some future growth plans of category expansion forthcoming, but those are all still in the works. So our customers are really just those average people that finally got to a place in life where they could get what they call a want versus a need. And they were prioritizing some downtime. They really wanted a chance to make some incredible memories with friends and family. And we approve their time off. And that's really, our trademark motto is we approve your time off because those are our people. We want to help you get out there and enjoy the fruits of your labors and share it with the people that you love most because the memories are what you're going to take with you.
That's awesome. I love that. It's an amazing company, and I think it's an amazing mission too, actually. And let's just talk a little bit about how then your company and ours at Veriff, so how the sort of interaction sort of came to be in the first place. Because I think, my understanding is anything, whenever there's in the lending industry, financial services in a more broader sense as well, whenever there's money available, that's going to be attractive to fraudsters and to people who want to sort of disrupt the process a little bit for their own gain. So what were some of the problems that you were experiencing sort of on that front then, and sort of how did that lead into you exploring some of the options for fighting it, I suppose?
Oh boy, wow. It was quite a learning lesson. We call it the school of hard knocks, right?
Yeah.
So when you are dealing with people's financial information, it's a lot of private information that does have to be protected. And so one of the things that we were in the process of doing was deploying a lot of newly developed proprietary technology to facilitate a progressive processing platform, so that way we could better protect the information of our customers from what had traditionally been done in this industry. So I already saw us as being a few steps ahead of other people in our space. And what happened along the way is, as we're gradually rolling out the components of the technology so that we could try to get ahead of what we call the thieves that are out there, we were unfortunately the victim of some really good identity theft. And the way that we found out about it was we got a phone call from someone that said, "Hi, my name is John Doe, and someone stole my identity because I just received a payment book for a boat that I did not buy." And because of the technology we did already have in place, I could very quickly find that customer, and I could look at the documents that had been presented and stop processing anything immediately. So it brought our company kind of to a standstill, but luckily only for a few hours, because with the technology, we could go in, we could find matching documents, we could look for some trends and some patterns, and it facilitated the opportunity to identify additional attempts. And of course, all fraudsters have patterns, right? They're going to test drive something to get through. And we immediately found those, within hours. And we said, okay, now we've discovered what's happened. How do we stop this going forward? And I worked very closely with the head of our portal development, is what we call it. He and I got online and we read, I think any company that does anything to protect identity, a company against identity fraud, we read everything there was to know. And when I found Veriff, I jumped right in. I saw the reviews that were there. I was able to immediately look at your technology. You had APIs available. And because I had my developer sitting literally right next to me at my desk, at 11 o'clock at night, that night, we were able to test Veriff and start working with your API integration and get it up and running to our sales team within days. And it was mind blowing how wonderful that process was and how easy it was to work with Veriff and deploy the technology. And then we could, add some of our own bells and whistles by integrating it right into our system, which made it so easy for our team members to be able to utilize the tool without having to leave our system to go to a separate system to utilize the platform and protect the company.
That's great to hear, and I think that's I'm very fortunate in the role that I have. I talk to a lot of customers about usually the ones that are very happy with us too, because they're willing to do the events like this. And I think that one of the things I hear is that sort of speed and the ease with which you're able to spin something up quite quickly as a form of defense. I think I'd like to talk about that a little bit more, but before we do, actually, just stay on the fraud part for a second. It sounds to me as though, obviously there's a financial cost involved here, but there's maybe another layer of cost involved as well that people don't think about. And that's the cost of doing nothing, or the cost of what would an internal situation, what would it look like if we did this ourselves? Was that an option for you guys? Or, it sounds like you moved quite quickly to move to an external supplier there.
Well, I am a huge believer of stay in your lane. And when you need a subject matter expert, go find one. Because I talked to the developer and when you look at the comprehensive service and the data points that Veriff is evaluating, for us to build that out on our own was absolutely cost prohibitive. I mean, the technology that you guys have and the number of countries that you can work within. Now, we only work within the United States, so we don't necessarily need, all of the international packages, but we do have an IT team that works in Colombia. And so we even tested it with their identification as well. And you guys won with flying colors about what we could do. So I'm like, okay, great. This is incredible. But stay in your lane. And if you can have something as comprehensive as this, because it is unbelievable when you look at just the United States, all the other countries out of the picture, driver's licenses change in every state every 6 months. They change one tiny little thing, and your systems pick those up. There is no way I could educate the people on my team to catch all of those details to try to manually stop a fraudulent driver's license. And that is the first thing that they alter. You steal somebody's driver's license, you swap a picture, and off you go. So stay in your lane. Find somebody that is really good at what they do and just integrate it into your system. And the integration into the system really is game changing. Yeah, because it's staying in your platform and keeping everything secure within your firewalls and never having to leave.
Yeah, that's the point I wanted to come to next, actually, is around that sort of integration piece, because it's not only what you have at the sort of the back end on the development side of it, but it's also you want to make it as seamless as possible for the customers that are coming into it. So you don't want them to feel as though they're jumping from one platform to another, because that would feel to me to be quite a sort of unsatisfactory customer experience there, and you might risk people dropping off and so on. Have you experienced anything sort of on that front when it comes to the sort of the UX side of things as well, and sort of how your customers are interacting with the platform within your bigger sort of ecosystem, if you like?
Could you rephrase the question? I got a little confused in there.
Sure. Yeah. So just the point really around is the integration piece is one side. I think we sort of covered off the back end side of things, the development side of it, and sort of the ease there. But it's also how to integrate Veriff's platform into yours from a customer point of view as well. So flipping it around on its head a little bit. And sort of making that sort of part of it as seamless as possible as well. Is that something that was a consideration for you there at all? Or, I mean, how does your onboarding process sort of work more generally, I suppose, and how does Veriff fit into that?
Oh, absolutely. So we are absolutely focused on our client experience. So the fact that we could integrate it into our platform was beneficial for what I consider my internal customer, my loan consultants. But the experience that it created for our loan applicants was equally as important. So it was wonderful to find a company as technology forward, which you have to be when you're in this space, right? But the experience for our customers was so easy. We naturally had a concern that people that tend to get into the space of buying the wants versus the needs are people that tend to be more seasoned in their life cycle and aren't always as quick to adapt or adopt new technologies. So we thought, okay, how much nurturing and hand-holding will we have to do with our customers to walk through this process? And so the first thing that we did was we had every single person on our staff go through the customer experience and give us feedback. And the feedback was, wow, this was really easy. And especially our senior team, it was really easy for them. And so we thought, okay, great. So we shouldn't have to do too much handholding and invest time to walk someone through this process. And when the process takes less than 2 minutes, it's fantastic. And, I would say 99.9% of our customers all have a smartphone, and that's really all you need. Yeah. We probably have, that 0.01% that has a flip phone or that really just don't get technology. And so you have laptop options. Yeah. And it's really been seamless. But that was a very important piece of the decision is what is our customer experience going to be when utilizing the technology?
And I think the way that you guys, when we had a conversation before, one of the things that jumped out to me actually, Dana, was when you mentioned that testing process, that you actually used it internally with some of your own senior leadership team and so on. I think that's a really interesting way to sort of test the solution, first of all. And if it works for you, it stands to reason it's going to work for other people as well. Can you just talk me through that process a little bit? Because it does sound quite interesting. And I think a really interesting way to get internal buy-in to the process as well, I should imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Whenever we do onboard new employees or new team members, we have them experience the process because we say, you're going to have to explain how this works to someone potentially. So we want you to experience it as well. And everyone is just blown away by how easy it is. And I'm not going to lie, there was pushback at first of, oh, I don't know, this is very intrusive and people aren't going to want to do it. And I said, you know what? Let me quantify for you what we've lost and what we could lose if we don't do this. And so that's a really fast way to shift around buy-in
Yeah.
to at least give it a go. And then they pick up that phone and they give it a go and they're like, wow, that was really easy. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was a huge win right there, is to get people that I knew mentally would have that limiting belief about utilizing a technology and the pushback we could get from customers. And then you just phrase it like, this is the new way of the world. You think you're going to do any bank transaction without retinal scans and donating blood? Like, this is just how it's going to start going.
I think it's a very valid point. I feel like that, yeah, the world has moved on now. And I think that, end users, customers, whatever phrase you have for them, I feel like they're a lot more willing to go through that process if it means that there's going to be a reduction in fraud because of it. So it kind of, in some ways, it becomes a selling point for a company that you've got this versus someone that hasn't, because it makes it show that you've got the robust processes and things like that. Is that something that kind of came into the equation as well, do you think? So I don't know how, talking to the lending industry as a whole, if you guys are kind of an outlier or you're sort of setting the trend there.
Actually, we're setting the trend, and I'm very proud of that. So thank you, Vera, for helping us set the trend. We absolutely promote ourselves as being very technology forward, and this complements that mission of ours. But I have to admit, it was also a byproduct. I mean, our first priority was stop fraud in our company, because that is so incredibly expensive for so many reasons. Not only just the monetary losses, but the loss in possible, to a damaged reputation could be enormous. We all know the power of social media, and one bad review or one bad post about I was part of a fraudulent transaction and they did nothing to protect me. We've actually been rewarded in our Google reviews that people say, what an incredible experience. I felt so safe and protected throughout the process, because we have both buyers and sellers participating in the verification, because these thieves are getting more and more sophisticated in how they go about creating fraud. And we even found some cases where people were doing some things that were putting dealerships at risk, where usually that was our safe space. And they had put together a program that was going to cause dealerships to lose money. So we've also, the dealership space is just embracing us, because we have this, which is one more layer of protection for them as well.
And I think that's a really, really important point to tease out to anyone listening too, who might be sort of going through this process themselves of discovery and figuring out what they should, the tools they should be using. Is that it's a constantly evolving picture. That's kind of the thing with fraud, isn't it? They're all, the fraudsters are always finding new ways, always testing new ways to probe the system to find weaknesses. So that stands to reason that you have to be very agile and flexible in your defenses as well, and be able to sort of dial up things and move into new areas and sort of things like that. So I think it's to your credit actually that you are able to do that, and you're constantly looking to bring new areas into the business that to go through this process. I think that is a very, very important tip for people to sort of take away from this, is that you can't sit still with this kind of stuff. It's not just a one and done. That's the solution. We don't have to worry about that anymore. It's something you constantly have to stay on top of. And I think that I know that that our fraud teams work very closely with our customers to make sure that they're alerted to sort of new types of fraud, things like AI and deepfake technology that's coming in now that we're seeing. So just sort of staying one step ahead of the game, I think, is very, very commendable.
Oh, thank you. It's an absolute mission, and Veriff is a big partner in helping us do that without question. We actually leveraged our experience, because even though everyone would rather keep it under wraps that they had a vulnerability and they lost some money in the process, we thought, this is really a learning opportunity that we need to share with our friendly competitors to protect the industry. Because we said, if they're coming after us, there's no question they're coming after others in our business. And so we directly reached out to the leadership in all of the other lenders that we have in our space. Again, friendly competition. And then we took it to our associations. For example, the National Marine Lenders Association. We said, you have to put this on your agenda. This must be an educational point. And they're like, oh, well, we don't hear much about it. And the more that they talked to us about it, and they saw the things that we were proactively doing to get the message out to others in the space, they said, you know what, we do. And the banks started calling us and asking about it. What are you guys doing? This is great. And we're trying to say, you guys should use this too. I mean, I admit, I called Veriff. I'm like, hey, can I get a referral fee for all these people I'm going to send you? And that's what they did. They laughed and they're like, no, just send them over. I'm like, hey, you know what? I really don't care. Let's just get people safe. And so the industry as a whole has taken fraud very seriously. They have put it on the agendas of our annual meetings. Veriff was invited to be part of a panel discussion, and it is game changing because we have to protect the industry. We have to protect people, because when fraudsters succeed, more people lose than the people that just lost money. It hurts everyone.
It certainly does. And people talk about sort of reputational damage when they think of their own company, but it's reputational damage to the industry as a whole is equally damaging to everybody within it, because there is a knock-on effect, as you say, and people are more reluctant to enter into these deals if they think there is some sort of chance of them being defrauded at some point. So I think that's a very again a very sort of notable point, that it's worth sharing this information, I suppose. And let's talk a little bit around the cost of these attacks. I mean, you mentioned it is a sort of an industry-wide sort of problem. And I'm imagining for larger lenders and things like that, there is maybe a tolerance that there is a certain amount of fraud that we just have to write off, and that is what it is. But I think certainly for smaller lenders and things like that, one bad deal could be catastrophic, I suppose. So what sort of values would be involved here? I guess is the question. And I suppose what would be the effect if something was to slip through?
Wow. To quantify it, it could be absolutely devastating to smaller businesses, especially, and put them out of business. I do know of, unfortunately, some competitors in our business that did not have the safeguards in place that we have been so proactive about. And it is rumored that they could very well go under from it. I again feel so blessed that we were able to catch it as quickly as we did. We were in a financial position that we could tolerate it. But I can also tell you that after deploying Veriff, within, I think I measured it over a 9-month period immediately following. Over the next 9 months, we were able to stop $750,000 worth of fraudulent attempts. And that would have hurt. That hurts anybody, especially when you're a growing company, and that's money now you can't turn around and reinvest so that you can continue your growth path. So it is devastating to not have safeguards in place.
Absolutely, yes, and you say this is the financial cost, if you like. That's above and beyond that is the reputational damage and all the other things that we've discussed already in there as well. So that's great, and I think let's just look at a brief sort of look towards the future, I suppose. What does I mean, you mentioned kind of in your intro that Vantage is growing and developing as a business. What do you see as kind of the next couple of years holding in store for you guys?
Well, I'm very excited about the future that we're building. If there's something that we're very focused on, it's always innovating. We have to stay ahead of what the predictable trends are. We're really focused on value add for our clients and a very holistic experience. So that way, buying a boat or any type of recreational vehicle is truly a dream come true. It's not the pain that we all feel when we either get a home loan or an auto loan. We really want to make it a wonderful experience from start to finish, because this is the point in time where people can enjoy pleasure crafts and just making memories. But along with that, we also have to stay ahead of the creativity we're seeing with the fraudsters. That is huge. So we are doing a lot of, development to continue to enhance our security protocols without impacting the customer experience for it to feel too cumbersome. And there's that delicate balance, because although it's easy to do the talk track around, yes, this feels very intrusive and cumbersome and a lot of steps and a lot of passcodes and multi-factor authentication. Trust me, it's for your own good, kind of like our teenagers, right? And people appreciate that, but it doesn't mean that they enjoy the process. So it's how can we have them go through this process and still make it enjoyable, with the understanding of it really is to protect people. So as we continue to expand our market and our value adds, we will absolutely be expanding all of our safety nets and safety protocols to make sure that everyone is well protected to the best of our abilities.
That's great to hear, and I think one of the culturally here, one of the things we say quite a lot is actually that we want to grow with our customers, and some of that is it might involve, as you mentioned earlier on, around this sort of document coverage when they want to expand into new territories and sort of go international and things like that. But on the other side of it too, it's growing in a fraud protection sense and making sure that they're each customer's fraud ecosystem is as developed as it can possibly be, with the various tools around sort of biometrics and other things that we can bring into the equation as well. So it's great to hear that you've got these plans, and we'll definitely be sort of with you by your side, I would say.
Oh, good. I'm so glad to hear it.
Awesome. I think that's probably all we've got time for today. So I just want to say thank you very much for agreeing to talk with us today. It was great to hear your story. Again, we've spoken a couple of times now, and it's great. And I think it's an incredible story that you got to tell there. And I think there's some really interesting takeaways for people here, actually, that they can sort of hopefully take into their own work life as well.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris. And thanks for being such a terrific partner with us.
Thank you very much.